Director of Public Policy at Aimed Alliance, Stacey L. Worthy, is back with me today to discuss this fiasco. Stacey, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
In your opinion, how likely is it that UnitedHealth will follow through on their threat to leave Obamacare?
Well, I think it's very likely. We're seeing a trend throughout the entire nation of insurers pulling out of the exchanges. For example, in Florida, we saw Cigna pull out recently. They cited increased costs related to insurance or to fraud. And then in Kansas, we've also seen Coventry withdraw from the exchange as well.
Now, do you think the Obama administration is panicking at this threat from UnitedHealth?
I don't think that they're necessarily panicking, but I think they are likely realizing that the law is deeply flawed and that changes do need to take place, and that insurers are exploiting problems with the law. So right now what we're seeing is that insurers are, instead of lowering costs reasonably, they're either passing on the cost to the consumers through high premiums or deductibles, they're denying care altogether, or they're withdrawing from the exchange.
And how big of an
that's problematic.
Yeah, for sure. How big of an impact do you think this would have on Obamacare as a whole? Like I said, 500,000 people would lose their insurance if UnitedHealth pulls out of the Obamacare exchanges. Would this be the beginning of the end for Obamacare?
Well, I don't know necessarily that this would be the beginning of the end. United only takes up 5% of the individual marketplace, but it would be one less competitor in that exchange. So that does mean that there's a possibility that prices would increase without that competition. You would see increases in premiums more so than they already are. But it also leaves the opportunity for an insurer who's doing things right, who's offering affordable care and quality care to step in and take United's place.
Right. Now, you've noticed something doesn't add up here with UnitedHealth. They are talking about their projections, and they're projecting negatively that they're going to have a decrease in revenue. Yet this third quarter, they've actually had an increase of 27%. Can you explain the discrepancy here?
Yeah, so if you look at United's profits last year, they actually made $5.5 billion in profits. When they look to the future, they're projecting a decrease in profits, but not necessarily a loss. And what we're seeing is insurers, when they calculate their budgets for the year, they only look at it in a year-long chunk. So they don't really consider the savings that they would make over time. Now, for example, if they provided access to care such as the hepatitis C cure, they would have cost savings over the years with reduced costs for advanced liver damage or reduced costs from hospital care, but they just don't take those kind of costs into considerations, and that's how they can justify either increasing deductibles or just withdrawing from the marketplace.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, do you expect the federal government to offer anything to them in order to convince them to remain in the exchange?
Yeah, it's possible that United could request subsidies. Last year, the health insurance industry as a whole requested $2.8 billion in subsidies from the federal government, and that's, the equivalent of a handout, a bailout. But, it's really not necessary, and the federal government shouldn't be offering these subsidies unless the insurer is providing quality care and affordable care, and they're actually seeing a reduction in their profits, and it's justified, which is not the case here.
Right. Now, in your opinion, could this be why UnitedHealth made this announcement in this way, almost as a negotiation move in order to get these subsidies?
It's possible. What we're seeing in the insurance industry is essentially insurers are acting as bullies towards the government. Now, they are saying, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to take our toys and we're going to go home. For instance, with with Kansas, you had an insurer, it was Coventry, that asked for a 35% increase in premiums, and the state refused to allow that increase to go through, and as a result, Coventry withdrew from the marketplace. If they don't get what they want, they're just not cooperating, and I think that might be what we're seeing here as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what UnitedHealth ends up doing, whether they do end up receiving some sort of compensation for remaining in the exchange or whether they follow through on their threat and pull out in 2016. Stacey, I appreciate your insight on this topic. After the break, we get a Democratic perspective on terrorism and the Syrian refugee crisis. Stay with us.